The Flash is finally in theaters, and we're here to share our different opinions on it. One thought it was okay. Another thought it was great. And then there's another one of us who really didn't have much of a clue what was happening, but stayed awake through the whole thing. So they thought it was a lot of fun. I bet you can guess who that was. We'll share our instant reaction in another car conversation immediately after leaving the theater. That's up after this message from those guys over at The Reverend and the Reprobate. This is Tatooine Sons.
We are the Reverend and the Reprobate, just two best buds interviewing people we have no business talking to. I'm Lucas Pinkard.
I'm Dan Gibson. These aren't tears on my face.
Every Thursday, we interview somebody else from our favorite fandoms and yours. You can check those interviews out on the Christian Nerd HQ Network. You can find us on YouTube at RevRep Podcast at ReverendRep.com. And if you can't remember our name, just go to BaconOffice.com. It's way easier to find. New episodes every Thursday. Thank you guys for supporting Christian Nerd HQ, and check out the Reverend and the Reprobate.
It's true. All of it.
What is the name of the porg on the Millennium Falcon?
Force is strong in my family.
What do you think his name is? It's a big moment.
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Maybe Turbis?
Do or do not. There is no try.
Turbis? Pablo, if you're listening to this live stream, that porg's name is now Turbis. It's a good Star Wars name.
We're not done yet.
These guys recorded an awesome podcast called Tatooine Sons. Everybody was lit.
Just did it. We saw the Flash.
We
with
did.
a little bit of a break.
Yeah, that's a bit frustrating, but I guess we'll be able to see it all.
Really didn't miss much
No, you guys
of
didn't.
significance with it. Let me see if I can back out of my
Really,
spot.
two
Here.
people trying to get into the same place.
Yeah, what happened was there was a tornado warning in the area, and I guess lightning struck, and somehow
Every single screen.
Yeah, every screen in the theater stopped running, but the audio kept going. And just that. I don't know how lightning does that specifically, but it did.
It's probably a fail-safe. Just to be safe.
So we got a little break. Right about, I think it was about
2 minutes.
halfway through the movie.
Not in a major scene that messed it up. All right.
Not huge.
So I'm going to just let Nathan...
I think we should let Sam
Okay, let Sam go first.
Why am I going first?
Because I'm going to have a lot to say.
All right.
Okay.
Sam, you go first. First of all, I'm just going to say it. I thought this was a phenomenal movie. I thought it was fantastic. So I'll share more going forward. But Sam,
that's me.
What were your thoughts on The Flash?
I thought it was good. I think I need to see it a second time before I make any real judgments. I don't know if it's maybe just because I'm stressed about this trip that's coming up or something, but I didn't dislike it by any means, but I didn't think it was like phenomenal either. I don't know if maybe that was some of the visuals. Some of the CGI and stuff really kind of put me off, and I'm trying not to let that affect my entire opinion on the movie too much. I know it's just visuals, but it did have an effect. But as for the story and the movie itself, I thought it was great. I thought it was an interesting plot. It towards the end, it felt very similar to Across the Spider-Verse, but like from a different perspective. So with like the canon events in
like
a way.
Miguel's perspective from Across the Spider-Verse.
but he was right in this case,
right?
Even though he still didn't follow his own rules there at the end. But as for a story, I thought it was great. I would like to see it again sometime to see if maybe that changes my overall opinion on the movie. But yeah, I thought it was good.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it was good.
All right, Nate, go for it, bud.
I mean, this is how you tell the Flashpoint Paradox storyline without it, while you can still surprise people that already know that story.
Which you're unbelievably familiar with.
I am very familiar.
I wonder if that has an effect too, because I still have not seen the animated Flashpoint Paradox.
That's fair. Great movie.
Even though I know
it's a great story.
And I've seen it.
Yes.
Right.
And so,
And I've watched a lot of the Flash series.
That's very true.
But there was this sense of like, I didn't know what was coming next, even though I know the story very well. I knew that he was at some point going to have to go back and kind of put the nail in the coffin for his mother, but I didn't know how he was going to reach that point. I was still rooting for him to win in the timeline where his mom was alive, even though I knew that couldn't happen. And then the twist with the new timelines, Barry being the Dark Flash later on, was really awesome.
That was cool.
When did you pick up on that?
As soon as he got that knife into his arm.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I noticed that was part of the shrapnel from the Dark Flash character. And so that was awesome. Dark Flash is a cool bad guy. Zod wasn't the villain of this movie. No. I don't know why people keep saying that he was. He was an antagonist, but the main villain was the Dark Flash. And Time was the villain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is what I wanted to have in this movie. And so that was really well done. I think that the like somebody said, the few cameos I've got were just awesome. I mean,
yeah, we'll talk about those.
Those were great. And Ezra Miller did a fantastic
job.
The ending where he's having to put the tomato can back and saying goodbye to his mother, he was effectively killing his mother.
And that is the central story of Barry Allen.
Yes.
Is the whole Flashpoint paradox is built around the idea that he is going to have to make that choice. It's what happens in the animated. It's what happens in the Flash series, TV series. And it happened. And it still, in fact, in my opinion, had the greatest emotional weight in this versus in
that scene in the supermarket hurt. It hurt.
Really
hurt. He has the power to do anything, and he can't do anything about it, you know? It's such like a burden to bear.
Ezra Miller's acting there
was phenomenal.
Really sold that he was so sad that he couldn't physically bring himself to do it. He wanted to stop himself so many times. We saw that. It was really well done. And we finally saw our first crisis event in a live action film.
Which is awesome. When that happened, I leaned over to you and I'm like, is this a crisis event?
Yeah, walk through that a little bit more. So basically, due to the end of like the worlds colliding and all that stuff, and the cryosphere and all that stuff, all that was going on, that was a multiversal ending event. And so that's a crisis. This whole movie was a crisis event.
Because if they don't resolve that, all of the multiverse collapses.
It's just either collapses or goes into a frantic state of just one Earth that is mumble jumbled of all of these multiverses, or causes a negative multiverse to appear. It's a really bad situation.
Yeah.
So we finally see that in a live action film, to be able to understand how this works. And we haven't even gotten all that much in animation before. We got Crisis on Two Earths, which is a fantastic movie, but also another multiversal, or at least two Earths that could end each other. So seeing that revolve around one character trying to save everybody was awesome. It was really great.
I think it was interesting that you're talking about this as being a crisis event. If you're a DC super nerd, you understand DC Comics, you understand the Flash, you understand the Crisis storylines. With that, you pick up on that watching those scenes.
Yeah.
If you're not, it doesn't change the impact of those scenes. You don't realize this is a crisis event, but it still holds emotional weight and stakes. You understand what's happening in that.
Right.
I thought that's effective.
It was with it.
What did you think about Ezra playing both versions of Barry, and Ezra being able to carry the movie so effectively? Did you guys ever get to a point where you thought that you realized that it's the same actor playing, or like it was standing out?
No, I get what you're saying. No, he actually did a very, very good job of keeping the two different Barrys separate. They felt different from each other, and he did a fantastic job of keeping it like that. I never once was like that never. The fact that he was playing the same character at the same time, that never pulled me out of the story. In fact, I like looking back on the movie. It is clearly two different characters in my mind, and he did a fantastic job of.
We have got some rain.
Wow.
We have. And I mean, you have to give props. I know the CGI in this movie is getting dogged on a lot, but they did something in this movie that had never been done before with CGI technology, and they did it fantastically. They allowed the same person to be in the same scene at the same time without having to do split lenses, without having to cut in between two different frames where it was just them talking. They were effectively in the same room at the same time. One of them at one point was CGI, the other one was real. Judging by who was speaking at that moment, or even if there was somebody speaking, it could have still been a CGI version of that character. And it is genuinely difficult to tell which version at which point is CGI or not. It's such a well done.
So when there's two berries, one of the berries is a CGI version at all times?
At all times. Either one might be CGI.
Really?
Y'all didn't notice that? Or you didn't notice that?
There's only one moment where I thought, is that a CGI version of Barry?
But at all times, yeah.
Wow. I did not pick up on that.
With clever camera angles where you can't see the uncanny valley of it. They have that. Sometimes they have it on screen as the CGI Barry, talking face first, and you don't really notice it unless you're looking for it. People are talking on the CGI, but that's only certain scenes. They're like the Chronosphere. I'm sure people are going to be like, that's horrible, but I honestly understand why it looks that animated version of those characters, because it's in a different format of the Speed Force. Speed Force isn't supposed to look like real life.
Well, and that's what Andy Muschietti said in an interview that came out today. He made it clear that he says, and he's getting ripped for it, like he's trying to excuse but he said that the way that the babies looked and the way that the other humans looked when you're in the Speed Force, or you're in the, what's it called, the Chrono Bowl, or
the Chrono Ball, yeah, I think so.
That type of thing. That he said that that's intentional because you're dealing with different light rules, different shadow rules, while he's in those different settings with it, because light works differently and all that. He explained it with it.
It makes sense. Honestly, it does. And, I mean, we have to address the fact that the Snyder Cut was canon in this movie.
Okay, explain why you say that. So you gotta really lay it out for people, the difference in what you're describing between Justice League, the Justice League, and this, that the Zack Snyder's going to make that argument.
Well, the first indication that that the Snyder Cut was canon comes from the music. When we see Ben Affleck's Batman show up for the first time fighting, we hear the Batman theme that was introduced in the Snyder Cut as the main Batman theme from that, for his character going on in the DCEU. So right there you see that. Then you see the Iris West that wasn't even mentioned or shown or anything.
The same actress?
It is the same actress as in the Snyder Cut.
Really? Are you sure of that?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah, it is the same. And so she wasn't even mentioned in Justice League, but she was in the Snyder Cut, and that was mentioned. That whole interaction between her and Barry in that intersection was mentioned by Iris. She's like, I see you.
Oh, is it at the same coffee shop?
No, not that. But it might have been. No, he was in the dog store at that time.
Oh, the dog store.
Trying to get a job. But I mean, she mentioned like, haven't I seen you a couple years ago? And it's like, that was a different person. That wasn't me. So that's showing there the connections. And then, we have Ben Affleck's Batman kind of mentoring Barry, which was brought up in the tie-in miniseries, bridging the gap between the Snyder Cut and this movie that they did for comics a few months back, which confirmed that the Snyder Cut, at least in that universe, was canon, and that drew into this movie to be also that miniseries was canon to it as well. So that makes that movie, Justice League, void. It is not the version they're using for this small seed that we've had, even though it's over now. It's not the version that they were using anymore. And so they're using the Snyder Cut to go forward, that's what it was, the true version of Justice League, which I do appreciate a lot.
Well, yeah, because you're a huge fan of the Snyder Cut.
Because it's much better than Justice League.
It is. You're right. It is. Did we know that Gal Gadot, that Wonder Woman was going to be a part of this?
We heard her cameo got cut.
Really?
I mean, yeah, we heard that she was going to have a cameo, but it was cut because they wanted to make sure that it wasn't confusing to reset the universe. But then they showed her in Shazam, and I guess they're like, hey, go ahead, put her back in. So that was awesome right there. That was cool. Good to see her still kind of make a presence. And then, yeah, no, I appreciated that.
That's good. What are some other things that stand out for you guys in the storyline and the film itself? What did you guys think about the way that they brought in Michael Keaton's Batman and his interaction with both the Marys and all?
I like the Big Lebowski look you had going on.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was interesting how this Batman was able to rid Gotham of its crime in a way. You know, he said that Gotham is one of the safest cities on the planet now, and he clearly hasn't been Batman for many, many years. So it's interesting to see that it is possible in a way for Batman to save Gotham. So I wonder if they'll ever explore that concept more in some other medium, like Batman going to an extreme, like finding a way to go back in time and change something to just save Gotham, even though it might screw everything else up. So I think that could be an interesting concept to be explored later on.
Now, Nathan, you're obviously the resident Batman fan of the group. So in your understanding of everything Batman that you've ever consumed, I'll just use it like that, has there ever been a storyline where things didn't just seem to get progressively darker and worse in Gotham no matter what Batman did, that he actually was able to turn things around in Batman or in Gotham City to the point where he could, at this point in this timeline, he's retired completely. Has that ever happened in any storyline that you're aware of?
I mean, honestly, it kind of feels a lot like Dark Knight Returns. At that point,
as far as the Nolan film?
No, that's
right.
Dark Knight Returns being the bold Bruce Wayne story that happened. At that point, of course, you know, later on, Gotham falls and he has to become Batman again, a lot like this story. But at that point, Batman did retire, and there wasn't really any reason for him to come back because there wasn't really much crime left, or at least they got it figured out. So Dark Knight Returns, honestly, is probably the closest we got to this version of Batman, but it just in a very different, less dark way.
What did you think about Michael Keaton's Batman in general?
I really did like Michael Keaton's Batman in this movie. He felt a lot like the Michael Keaton Batman we got in Batman 89 and Batman Returns. Just a little bit like he has grown older, he has grown wiser, and has understood what it means to be Batman now at this point. And I really did like this character. I honestly think that great send-off for his character, finally having an ending to him instead of it just switching to Val Kilmer randomly and then to George Clooney and then forgetting about him, basically. This was a really great send-off for his character.
We can just kind of start talking some Batman cameos for just a second. Obviously, we've got Ben Affleck's Batman in this. We've obviously got Michael Keaton's. Those weren't a surprise. I think the big surprise, more than any of them, would be the very ending after the court case and all of that is resolved, and Barry's dad is finally exonerated and found innocent with it. Bruce Wayne shows up. He calls Barry first on the phone, and as soon as he starts speaking, I'm like, that is not Ben Affleck.
Yeah,
no. Did you realize it was George Clooney at that point?
No.
Who did you think it was?
I didn't know. I had no idea who it could have been at that point. I was wondering where they were going to go with it.
Sam, do you have any clue?
No, I mean, they could have gone anywhere.
I thought it was Michael Keaton. I thought that time that Batman had jumped timelines or something.
That would have been interesting.
With it. What do you think about it? I'll start with you, Sam, and then we'll go to you, Nate, because you may have more thoughts than anything on it. What did you think about George Clooney coming back as Bruce Wayne in this, Sam?
Yeah, I thought it was more for a joke, I guess. Not that that's a bad thing. I thought it was cool. It was fun. I think it kind of helps show that this universe is no longer kind of connected to the overall story. It's kind of to help you figure that out. But I thought it was fun. It's a good little. I'm trying to think of the word, but it's cool for George Clooney. It's like a little redemption. You were Batman, yeah, redemption in a way. You were Batman, and we're still going to kind of poke fun at how silly it was at times. But it doesn't mean that you weren't Batman. A lot of people would kind of almost like to forget those movies. But I thought it was cool, and George Clooney's a good actor.
How many movies? He only did one.
So he had Batman and Robin.
Okay, so how many did Val do? Just one? One. Okay, okay. What did you think about them bringing George Clooney in as Bruce Wayne?
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was great, ton of fun. I don't think that it had much implications. I thought it was just really awesome to see that. It fit the vibe of the movie, and yeah, it kind of confirms in some ways that this could now be told more stories in an Elseworlds fashion, allowing it to be outside of the DCU, but also being able to be brought in if they ever want to through the Elseworlds kind of storyline, if they want to. Whatever is wanting to go on, that's fine with me. But it was just a lot of fun to see George Clooney back as Bruce Wayne, and because honestly, he wasn't a bad Bruce Wayne. He was just a bad Batman. So that's really all it was.
The costume didn't help.
The costume didn't help. Neither did the credit card.
Right.
No, the credit card's cool.
Oh,
okay.
The bad credit card?
Yeah. Never leave home without it.
That's such a strange movie.
It was.
I mean, Batman Returns is a strange movie, but there's a whole different level of strange in the Batman. It's Batman and Robin, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Surprise to me was the Adam West Batman.
Yeah,
that was cool.
One of the universes that was colliding. What do you think about that guy?
That was really cool. I mean, it was just a little short cameo, but it was awesome to see because it was just kind of a tribute to what DC was. And that honestly is what this movie felt like, just a tribute to all that has happened in the live action space of DC until this point.
Except I can see a Christian Bale Batman.
No, we can't, because honestly, at this point in the timeline, he's not Batman anymore. So that would have been difficult to explain, but I mean, I'm fine with that. It kind of just didn't. It would have felt off to keep putting it in there. I respected that they didn't go do too many cameos at once just because they wanted to get all of them in just to have the fan service and say they did.
Let's stay on the cameos for a little bit because there were there were three pretty significant Superman cameos. George Reeve cameo.
Yeah.
The original TV serial. From when this was reruns when I was a kid. Me waking up at 5:30 on weekdays to make sure I got to watch my 30 minutes of Superman when I had to get ready to go to school. So that was cool for me.
That was pretty cool.
With that, the big one.
Yeah.
Sam. Let me just come back to you. I'll come to you in a second. Sam, had you heard any of the rumors of the the Superman cameos and who they were going to be?
No, I hadn't heard really much about anything regarding any sort of cameos in this movie, so I was going into all of it pretty fresh.
We had a few weeks ago, Nathan, in our group chat.
Yeah,
we had begun a conversation about me hearing some rumors.
Okay,
and you asked us to stay out. You didn't want to know what those were. Nathan, there were two at that time that you and I had a conversation that I had been hearing about, and I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about either one of those. They were Christopher Reeve's Batman. Superman, excuse me. Yeah, that would have been even crazier. Christopher Reeve's Superman and Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Yeah.
I'll get your thoughts on both of those before I share mine.
I mean, Nicolas Cage Superman makes a lot of sense, especially bringing in like Batman in this movie, because Nicolas Cage Superman was supposed to be the Superman of that universe. The Nicolas Cage Superman movie was going to be a Tim Burton film, so that kind of made sense to bring him in. It was a cool scene, honestly. He's a cool Superman, but it was just fun to have him in there. A what if situation is what it felt like. And then Christopher Reeves, and I don't know the name of the actress who did Supergirl for those films, but that was really awesome. And they did it in such a way to where it felt more like a tribute than just a cool fan service cameo. It felt like a tribute to who Superman was at that time and what truly made superhero and comic book movies were made from Superman films with movies.
And James Gunn has gone on record and said that Christopher Reeve's Superman is the best Superman so far. That's what he said. He said it, I heard it in an interview I listened to today. So
it's also what made him want to make movies. So super important cameo and really well done.
Did you think that they were done pretty well, Sam? The way that they brought those in?
Yeah, I thought they were done respectfully and in a natural way. With the different timelines of worlds colliding. I did think that Nick Cage was funny. That was cool. It's not. I was gonna say it's kind of a risky cameo. Not that it's like, oh, it could be backlash, but you have to be pretty plugged into general fandom to understand the meta behind why that's a fun cameo. Because if you didn't know that Nick Cage was supposed to be Superman at one point, that's gonna just kind of be weird.
Well, even to the fact that they built the way the character looks off of the concept.
Yeah, the screen test.
Or the screen test.
Yeah, it just looked exactly like the pictures I've seen. With the mullet.
Everything.
Yeah.
Which is built off of the
90s Superman. The death of Superman.
The rise of reign of the Superman.
Right. Yeah, when he comes back with his mullet. But it was cool. It was fun. And then Christopher Reeves, obviously, it's classic. I remember watching one of those movies. I can't remember which. I think it was Superman Returns.
That's Brandon Routh.
Yeah, that's Brandon Routh. They didn't bring him back.
I know I watched one, or maybe I'm just thinking of
Quest for Peace. I feel like we had that.
Maybe the one where
that's Superman.
I think I'm thinking of the one where
Superman 2, Superman 3, Superman 4, Quest for Peace. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it was the one where he turns back time or whatever.
Well, that's the first.
Is it? Okay. But it was really cool to see. I didn't remember that there was a Supergirl.
It was in the Christopher Reeves universe, so that's why they brought her in.
Right. Yeah, but I don't remember.
It was a movie
specifically. That's cool.
Yeah.
Which is cool too, because they do have you have a Supergirl character too in this movie.
Yeah,
a primary character. So by putting that version of her in the other world, it adds more legitimacy to the Supergirl character.
Yeah.
With it, I was worried at one point that the only way they were going to defeat Zod was for them to be bringing in all the different Supermans and these other Batmans. And all of that, it was going to be some super, team up of all of these different versions of character or versions of these characters coming in to defeat Zod, which I wasn't going to like when I felt like that was what was happening in the movie. I wasn't going to like that for a lot of reasons. One, I felt like it would be cheap. Two, it would make Zod too powerful of a character. Okay. With that. I liked the way that they brought them in.
Yes.
Where you see tying it into the Crisis event that you're talking about.
I did appreciate how, there was a big battle sequence at the end, but it wasn't really the climax, the main point. It was more of a come to terms kind of moment.
It was what led to really the big battle is Barry against Barry.
Right.
Not in a fight, a physical manner,
right?
And not even Barry from all of the previous, the main timeline Barry versus the adjusted timeline Barry. I guess call it like that. It's not even those two against each other because the original Barry, the main Barry, doesn't battle. He just waits, tries for him, watches it. It's Barry against himself, literally. It's Barry waiting to get back and am I going to be able to do what I know I have to do?
Yeah.
Which is the most powerful element of the Flashpoint Paradox storyline. With that, how did you feel about them reversing the powers for a while, Sam?
I thought it was an interesting idea. I mean, we knew that OG Barry was going to get his powers back eventually, but it did. One thing that I liked when he lost his powers was he didn't immediately have this like identity crisis, like, oh my gosh, who am I? Like, I can't be of any use now that I don't have my powers. He's like, nope, I can still help my Barry. I can still go on these missions. I can research and search for Clark again. I liked that because it feels like with most superheroes, when their powers are taken away suddenly, they immediately like panic and have no idea what they can do. While Barry's like keeps his cool and he's like, I can still figure this out regardless, powers or not. I mean, I need to get it back. He obviously says that, but he doesn't just shut down because he doesn't know what to do. I did appreciate that.
So what did you think about the switch from the Flash?
Yeah, I really liked it. It added something new to this storyline that worked so well for the Flashpoint Paradox, and then allowed it to kind of move forward. I mean, we both saw it when they hooked up the OG Barry into the chair with the chemicals. We both knew what was happening.
Yeah, that was like straight from the animated.
We're like, he's gonna get burnt that first try, and I was wondering how they're gonna handle that. And then it being Supergirl that takes to get struck by lightning, that was awesome. And so,
but it was really other Barry that brought him back,
right?
And
so
he shocked him a bit.
Both of the Barrys had really great arcs throughout this movie. You see the one who has the powers who's trying to mature in his power too fast, which is not, strangely, it's possible for the Flash. He was gaining so much power, yet wasn't experienced in it like OG Barry was. And he was starting to kind of get fed up with this idea of everything they could be doing and was just thrust into this role of a hero way too soon. And so that was really an interesting concept for Barry to mentor Barry and how to use his own powers. And that was awesome. And honestly, when I went into this movie, and I've been saying it for a long time, I didn't want the villain to be anyone big. I wanted to want
like some super villain to show up there that we didn't know about or something.
Exactly. I wanted the villain to be Time, because that's exactly what it needs to be for a Flash movie like this. And it was. There wasn't a big, giant third act battle that went for an hour against one big supervillain and all that stuff. Yes, there was a big third act battle, but it felt like it was more to deal with him against Time consistently, trying to battle that, going back, the new Barry going back time and time again, trying to save it and using that battle again and again, and then him having to battle the Dark Flash from the future that has been doing this for who knows how long, and then him having, and that wasn't a long fist fight or anything like that. It was just one move. Felt like the duel from Twin Sons, honestly. And had that happen, and then you see him just kind of accept this fact that a superhero movie doesn't need a big final climax with the Flash fighting a big supervillain. It just needed to be a Flash movie, and it succeeded in that very much.
Yeah, it did. We haven't talked about Sasha Calle's girl at all yet. I mean, we've mentioned her a couple of times, but I wasn't surprised really with any of the way they brought her in. I think that was pretty telegraphed in trailers.
Yeah.
With it, you see in the trailers her in that sphere decimated, because of this not having access to any sun. With that, and then her being out on top of the facility, getting sun for the first time and coming to rescue him while she's still in sort of her prison or patient outfit or whatever. Ooh, here comes some more rain. So I wasn't surprised by any of that. What did you think? Let's not talk about her ending of the story yet, but what did you think about her character, that version of Supergirl? Start with Sam, just because you're less than seen her, and then we'll go with you,
I liked her. I thought she does, not that it was a bad thing, but she deserved more screen time. She was a really interesting character. I didn't know much about her story, like how she was sent to technically protect Clark. I thought that was interesting. I thought she portrayed the character very well. I'm trying to think about the details. I mean,
what did you think about her, the way that she interacted with Zod and her, her thought process with Zod?
Yeah, I thought it was short and sweet. Like she didn't need this long dialogue or anything. She learned what had happened to Clark, her mission, right? And when she realized that she failed her mission, she went over the edge. And one thing, this kind of contradicts my previous comment, but with the lack of screen time, but they handled the side characters well. They were in there long enough to get their part of the story through, but not in there so long or so front and center that it kind of overshadowed Barry's storyline. With her and Bruce, they were handled very smartly, I would say.
Okay. Nate, what did you think about her?
Yeah, I really liked her character overall. I saw somebody say, and I agree with this. She's the first time we've seen a Supergirl who genuinely looks like Kal-El's cousin. And they did a really great job with the cast on there. But no, her story was very similar to what we've got in the comics and every other adaptation. Her ship was separated when they both went off, and usually what happens to her, she kind of goes into this like wormhole-esque area, but still ends up back in Earth. So that's why Kal-El at that point is grown up, and older than Supergirl when she arrives. But they kind of changed that up here because they both got separated. She ended up back on Earth later than we expected, and then we find out that Zod downed Kal-El and intercepted his ship and killed him as an infant. And that made Zod a little bit more terrifying and gave Supergirl a reason to lose her mind. And it was a great motive there. I understand why she did it. So that was really awesome. I think she had a great performance. I think it was a very well done character. I really appreciated how they handled it. And honestly, they went to a place I didn't think they would go with her character dead. We'll come back into that in a second. I thought it was interesting how this Supergirl had been so jaded or became so cynical and hateful towards humanity because of the way that she was treated by humanity for so long when she came to Earth, to where she was just like, this isn't my problem, right? And she leaves. But it was Barry's natural desire, just his character of wanting to be a hero, right? He wants to do the right thing, so he rescues her, and that causes her to come back, which ends up resulting in her rescuing Barry with that. What did you guys think about that part of her story?
Yeah, I liked that contrast where Clark was raised by a loving family, so he came to love and respect humanity, while she was thrown in a cell from the moment she arrived, basically, and treated like garbage. So why would she risk herself to save humanity?
Yeah, I really appreciated that full circle moment with her rescuing Barry at the end there, and then all of that. And it follows Flashpoint Paradox very well. Instead of it being Superman in a cell held by the Russians, it was kind of the Americans. It was just government agents that held Superman in Flashpoint Paradox, but it was Supergirl in this movie. And so they held that very, very well. And so, I mean, well done to change Flashpoint Paradox just in a small way.
Yeah. Now, one thing I do know about Flashpoint Paradox, at least the animated movie, is the alternate timelines Batman is Thomas Wayne, not Bruce Wayne. Why do you think they decided to not go down that route for this movie?
Well, I think that's just because they wanted to bring in Michael Keaton's Batman.
Yeah.
So the different Batman in this allows them to have Michael Keaton as Batman and that storyline versus, just Thomas Wayne.
Okay. It would also be confusing to some people that don't understand that. This general moviegoer of like, okay, why is Batman okay with killing? And
Well, like his gun pretty quick.
It would have been different. Also, the entire world would have had to have been different because if Thomas Wayne is Batman, that means that Arthur Curry and Wonder Woman are still a thing, and they're at war with each other because and they're about to destroy the world, and that would change it to be very different than what it was in this one.
Yeah. Obviously, Supergirl does not make it out of this. Nathan, you mentioned that you never expected them to go there, and you like where they went with that. Kind of explain what you mean.
I didn't expect them to go that far because I thought they were going to use her for more movies, and they still may. I don't know what they're going to do with it, but I always like to see you go down a route of where they are just not afraid of ending a character's story when they feel like it should be ended. And at that point, that is what needed to happen for the story to move forward. It needed to have
it's becomes such an important piece to Barry too.
It's an immovable event at that point, and so it has to happen. And they just had to kill her, and it just wasn't explained. Wasn't a long gets. It's just what had to happen for the story. And I really
Same with
appreciate that. Yeah, same with Batman. But he had a little bit of a longer death scene, which was like great. Send off.
He deserved though, as Michael Keaton's Batman, he deserved it for it. I was a little surprised the first time he died.
Right, I was like,
and then they went back in time. Like, it was like a Professor X and Logan moment,
right?
For real.
With that, which I didn't like that moment in Logan, so I was a little frustrated. But I like the way that they ended up bringing it back and resolving it, and allowing Barry to have that moment with Bruce. As well. We've had in Marvel and in Across the Spider-Verse now, in the Sony Spider-Verse, now in this film, we've had not only multiverse stories, but a common element is central to the stories in all three. And that is, in the MCU, you have these absolute points. In Across the Spider-Verse, you have canon events.
Yeah.
And in here, in this one, what they call them, immovable.
I don't remember,
With that. What? My car? Oh, thanks. Appreciate it. I'll go the other way. Sorry, we're driving and we have to pick up Sam's car. So I went to the wrong turn. I want to go home. Anyway. Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you notice about this version of it that was similar and different to those other versions of these kind of moments that can't be changed in timelines?
Well, they were a bit different than what would happen for absolute points in canon events. And with canon events, if you try to change it, you cannot go back in time to try to change it again. If you ruin a canon event, you might ruin the multiverse at that point. And then when you deal with the MCU and those absolute points, you do see that what happens is you keep going, you keep starting to slowly destroy that Earth and slowly destroy that multiverse if you keep trying to go back in time. But in this one, you can keep going back in time and the outcome can be slightly different every time, but it has to happen. And at that point, you don't really destroy the multiverse. It's just you keep causing things to start being the same, but you just can't leave that timeline. You cannot leave that problem, that point. So that was a bit different, and that's how it is really in the comics more than anything.
Sam, what do you think about the different versions of that element and how it worked in this?
Yeah, it is interesting that concept has been popping up so much lately in media. With canon events, it's less of a time travel thing and more of a that this thing's coming and you can't change it. As with like what Nathan said, kind of with this movie and the Doctor Strange episode of What If, you can go back as many times as you want, but no matter what you do, it's not going to get better. And I got the impression that, at least in this movie, the more times you go back and try and fix it, the worse things get.
Which is
every time.
Which is sort of explained when Bruce Wayne is communicating what happens if you adjust time.
Right, yeah, because you just keep creating more and more branching timelines.
Right.
Which they started getting into the, here's the branching timeline, thing. We've got this for the umpteenth time now. But I appreciated how they found a way to explain it differently. They put their own twist on it. And
spaghetti.
It makes sense with spaghetti, right?
I'll never eat spaghetti the same way again.
Right? Yeah, we're gonna be like, you get the hot mess, Terrence. But it is a very interesting way to explain why there's moments that meet up, because it's like the canon events, right? You've got certain elements that will always be the same, right? Like how I think he mentioned that Batman's parents died, or whatever.
Yeah,
that's an element that's always going to be the same in every universe, right? So I liked how they were able to change that up a bit.
What's the big theme? Start with you, Sam. What's the big theme of this movie?
It's just, I think, accepting your past, accepting what's happened, which I think is a lot of the theme of a lot of these stories. I'm curious to see what they'll do with Into the Spider-Verse in Part 2, but with this movie, at least, it really does seem like coming to terms with your past and realizing while there may be tragedy, it's still a gift in a way, what you do have. Because in a way, young Barry, I guess, is a way of explaining it, didn't appreciate what he had, but OG Barry did because of that his past and stuff. So it's really a great lesson in perspective and not taking for granted what you have.
Yeah, I definitely feel like the theme was accepting your past, just accepting what you can't change and how you don't really have control over where your life goes at that point, and accepting that fact. And that was really well done, and they really portrayed that very well, and how much if we had the power to go back in time and change things, would we have the maturity enough to understand that we can't do that without making things worse. And it was really a well done way to show that, and it was just very well done showing that.
Well, I think the big difference between what we see in this version of the multiverse with these moments and what we're seeing and will continue to see in the Spider-Verse with Miles is these are moments going back into trying to change the past. Miles isn't trying to change the past. Miles is trying to change his future. And I think that there's two different stories going on there, and actually two very important different lessons. You have to accept when something is in the past, you have to accept that it's in the past and learn to deal with those things and move on from it. Otherwise, it will destroy you, like we see happening with Barry in this one.
Right.
But Miles shouldn't have to accept the future as being inevitable. He should be free to write his own story, which is what the story of Across the Spider-Verse and Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to be all about. Yeah, it's going to be good.
I am your father.
It would be a big mistake to think that this movie is just another retread of the ideas normally found in multiverse stories. So many of these multiverse movies are all about changing time. And of course, that's the MacGuffin of The Flash. But this story goes to a much more profound place in the final 10 to 15 minutes as we see younger Barry continue to go into the Chrono Bowl to change the inevitable intersection that leads to Kara and Bruce's deaths. Every time he returns, he is more and more scarred and wounded. He carries with him the shrapnel of his failures and refuses to let them go. The meaning of The Flash isn't that we can't change the past like so many of these other multiverse stories. It's that when we fail to come to terms with our past, it will destroy us as we're incapable of moving on. Thank you so much for listening to Tatooine Sons, a pop culture podcast. We are part of the Christian Nerd HQ. Every weekday, Monday through Friday, another podcast episode is released on our socials and our feeds and wherever you find your podcasts. On Mondays, it's the Christian Nerds Unite podcast with Ricky Pope. We come out on Tuesdays. You know that because you're listening right now. Wednesdays is Fangirling Over Jesus with Ashley Cox. Thursdays is The Reverend and the Reprobate. You heard those guys at the beginning. And then Fridays is Speaking Nerdy, which is just a hilarious mess of a conversation every single time. Check us all out. Check out all the different shows. The links to each one of these podcasts is in the show notes. So it's really easy for you to just open up your podcast player, click on that link, go over there and listen to one of those episodes. Give us ratings and reviews on all your podcast apps that you're listening to us on. That helps people find the shows. And follow the Christian Nerd HQ at Christian Nerd HQ. Pretty easy to find on all the social media channels. And follow us too, Tatooine Sons, SONS, on Facebook and Twitter. That's pretty much where we spend most of our time is Twitter because, why now? We're the old guy in the group. Twitter's where it's at. So that's going to pretty much do it for this week. Let's see. What are we I have no idea what we're talking about next week. It's the first weekend where we haven't had a major film release. We may be doing a preview of the Indiana Jones franchise getting ready to go into the final film in the Indy saga, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. We'll talk about that next week. I think I just made the decision right now. In the meantime, while you're going about the rest of your nerd life, always remember that we care about you, that we really love having you as part of our Tatooine Sons family. And
may the Force be with you always.
This party's over.
I like that Wookiee.
Don't get technical with me.
Joy, please.
Yep, yep.